been an it wouldn't have been prescribed for women with breast cancer if it was purely anabolic. You're not giving those women Nandrolone. You know what I mean? You're giving them something that crushes estrogen. So the only question
Whichever
is,
way it did it.
by
it
what mechanism?
Estrogen.
Exactly, by what mechanism? So I don't know if you saw this. I saw this. Greg Doucette was talking about it. Of course, man. So both the same.
What big? 30?
12.
Seriously?
Yeah. Are we recording?
Yeah.
Excellent.
This is what we do here. We share velos and zins.
It's a brotherhood. It's a brotherhood, people.
Maybe we'll get fucking sponsored. Juice and nicotine.
That's actually, no joke, a goal of mine, for us to get sponsored by a nicotine
We will
company.
be eventually.
It's going to have to happen at some point. So, obviously, the Arnold Classic just went down a few weeks ago, right? And I saw Greg Doucette talking about this, and it was like, every now and again something happens where you're like, I got to rethink my priorities in life, or I think we're very careful about the stuff that we recommend here and that we discuss. There's a lot of caveats, like don't fuck your health up, put your PED use in context, like it's only really worth it to go all in on these things if you're competing, if there's money on the line. So look at this. Jody Vance, not JD Vance, Jody Vance, a 20-year-old bodybuilder and coach, died while attending the Arnold Sports Festival in Columbus on Thursday. According to the coroner's office, Vance was transported to Grant Medical Center from the Arnold Sports Festival and was pronounced dead in the hospital at 12:51 p.m. In social media posts, Vance's family posted on her accounts stating that Vance had died from heart complications due to dehydration. 20 years old. But here's where it gets even more interesting. She wasn't even competing. She just wanted to look dry in the booth taking pictures with fans.
No way. So she took diuretics and all that shit.
Yeah. I always try to be very respectful. Someone passes away, they're not around to defend themselves. We don't want to desecrate the name of someone. Their family's obviously going through a lot, but it's not worth it, dude.
No.
That's so, and makes me wonder, for every one person who dies or has serious health complications, how many other people are just doing it and shortening their lifespan for no reason? No reason. Taking diuretics so your arm looks a little more jacked when you're taking a selfie?
Well,
come on.
it's this. You and I are a little bit older. How old was she? 21?
20.
20.
So young, yeah.
You don't think about things. She didn't have enough life experience to think, is it worth it or not? Because it's worth it. Everybody's doing, what's going to happen to me? I'm 20.
Yeah.
They're all doing it.
Yeah.
Right? Think about fucking when I used to eat, 17 hits of ecstasy on a Saturday night.
Yes, this is true.
You don't think about it?
Yeah.
I wouldn't even fucking hold one now. Put it that way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They don't think of this.
Yeah.
Fucking all these people. I'm 20 years old. How's going to happen? I won't do that when I'm 35. Then, I'll be careful. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But they also through all the summers and all the years and life experience to get older, you start to get more mature. They don't have the maturity level yet to think of what could happen in the future or even think about the future.
It's also the worst, in my opinion, classification of drug to fuck with.
Yeah.
If you're taking something that messes with your endocrine system, it's still more dangerous for women, obviously, okay, in terms of irreversible side effects. But, let's say it's a man, and you're obviously taking testosterone and you're not blasting super liver toxic drugs, you're taking Tren all year long or something like that. It's, as we've seen, it is eminently possible to live a long, high quality life as long as your blood work's under control, your diet's good, your cardio, whatever, okay? Diuretics are not to be fucked with. They're not, dude.
Yeah.
You have to also ask, do you even have a big enough understanding of this drug to take it in such a manner, right? 20 years old, how much do you really know? And what coach out there would suggest, hey, pop a diuretic before you stand at a booth all day at the Arnold? Probably none.
Right.
There are notoriously, and I'm not going to name names, but there are notorious coaches out there that have literally bodies on them, from their diuretic protocols.
Now
and
educate
whatnot.
the audience. Why do bodybuilders or competitors die from certain diuretics? I know what. Explain.
Well, first of all, you're trying to suck as much water out of your body as possible. In some cases, I think it's more common with guys who might be behind on their diet. I think that they try to over rely on pulling out water if they're behind on the diet or they're looking too soft. They don't know what to do. They usually will use a non-potassium sparing diuretic, potassium wasting diuretic. Let's say screws up your electrolyte balance, turns your blood into sludge, affects the kidneys, and then you die.
What happens is the heart, the body works on electrical impulses, all right? Now you shut off the electrical pulse, which now activates the heart to pump by pulling too much potassium out. This is what makes the heart stop. This is why potassium-sparing diuretics are to be used. Yeah. Again, you can manipulate the dryness with diet and water pulling. It's that little extra, but then I think guys get crazy and pull out. I don't even think diuretics for a lot of people are even necessary.
It's interesting you say that. Yeah.
They're not even necessary, bro. Look, dude, when fighters suck out for fights, they're not bodybuilders, but who gets more dry than a fighter?
No one.
They fucking, dude, Conor McGregor would weigh 145 and then he'd go up to 170.
He looked like Skeletor, too.
Dude, all of them, bro. Yeah. All of them.
Yeah, that's a great point.
People don't realize also with fighting, that's not their fight weight, bro. They're weighing in for about an hour at that. That's like a bodybuilder. Weigh like that for a fucking few hours. Yeah. Suck everything out.
The longer you weigh that, you're at that weight, the worse your performance will be because it's so demanding on the body to do that. You had to hit that weight and just rebound almost immediately.
Do bodybuilders water torque like what a fighter does, like overload and then pull? Do they even know that principle?
So I was listening to a podcast about the Arnold with Justin Harris, who we talk about a lot, and he was talking about how that does happen, in particular with classic physique guys who have to make a weight. So it's a little bit different. If you're an open bodybuilder, you just have to look dry, but you can step on. There's no scale. You could be 300 pounds. It doesn't matter, right? For classic physique guys that have to make a weight, which is like 225 or 240, a lot of these guys are crazy jacked. You can't add that much more muscle at that point in time. And I think Justin's point was you could always make the weight. Especially when you're that big as a percentage of body mass. It's if you can cut from 175 to 145, you can cut from 285 to 240. It's not going to be good for you. It's not going to be fun. But it also doesn't enhance performance because you look flat. You look totally flat and sucked in.
Rich Piana used to do this before expos. He was a whack and he told the truth and utter truth. He used to carb deplete before an expo. And then when you carb deplete, what he would do, he'd either carb deplete or that's what he would do. He would pull the water out. Now, when he would pull the water out with a diuretic, he would carb load and then shoot Humalog. Right? Now, when you carb deplete, your cells now have the ability to soak in more glycogen than if you were hydrated. So now you should initiate more cell volumization in conjunction with Humalog. Yeah. He goes, I will gain 10 pounds of muscle in a couple of days. Yeah. People don't know that.
Yeah, exactly. Don't do that. There's a reason why Rich, who I do like, is not with us anymore. At least he was honest. You got to give him credit. He was like, this is what I'm taking. This is the name of the game. But yeah, I mean, diuretic use is so irresponsible. And again, you never know if coaches are telling the truth or competitors are telling the truth. Some guys obviously lie about PED use. They kind of lie down for a number of reasons. You don't want to make it seem like it's the hard work and your genetics and not the drugs and whatnot. But a lot of bodybuilders, Dorian Yates has probably spoken about this. Almost certainly Jay Cutler and a lot of coaches have said, I didn't fuck with diuretics, because
they never took diuretics.
It was too risky. And again, if you're an open level competitor at the Olympia, okay, you don't have to make weight. You just have to look dry. That could mean losing 5 pounds of water, 10 pounds of water. It could mean losing over 20, which is probably you start to have serious problems. But it's all about the appearance, not about the number on the scale, right? It's a totally different thing. I think it's eminently possible to lose a ton of water weight if that's what you're looking to do by sodium loading, then pulling the water out. Obviously, like you said, carb loading after the fact to appear drier and more full. There's just no need to do this, especially if you're not competing. Again, no one would have cared if she looked like she was holding a little bit more water at the fucking booth. Nobody would have noticed. Not a single person would have cared. There's no way you can tell me that a responsible coach was working with this girl and said, you know what, you should do this. It's a make or break moment for you. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And sure, maybe if you feel like that's the difference between you getting your pro card and not, and you worked your whole life, maybe.
Slight body dysmorphia also, and I have it and used to have it a little worse. I used to go to these pool parties and be like, dude, I'm going to be the most shredded, dude. I'm going to take it. And I did every year. And like, dude, I would go so shredded, I looked odd because I'm almost not in fucking tune with what everyone else would look like.
Yeah.
I treated it pretty much like a show.
Yeah.
I was fucking peeled. If I was half as ripped, I would have still stood out.
Yeah.
I'm crazy. I'm like, was this necessary to get this shredded? Yes, it was awesome. I wouldn't turn it back.
Yeah.
But again, like no one in that is really going to notice if your rear delta's separated from your lat.
Yeah.
No one cares.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, go ripped and lean.
Yeah.
But like to be that sucked out for like you're doing a show, that's not really that important.
Yeah, especially with no actual material reward
You're
or
not
otherwise for it.
Competing.
Yes, exactly. I actually had a friend, guy I used to train jiu-jitsu with. When I met him, he was pushing 50, so he was like your age now. Trained with the young guys. He was a tough motherfucker, and he came from a bodybuilding background in the 80s, the Lee Haney era. And he told me that he shot Lasix before a show and did his posing routine or whatever, and he said he didn't feel right, and he went over to the doctor that was there, and he was like, hey, I'm not feeling well, and the doctor was like, don't get out of my sight, you're in the middle of a massive heart attack.
He was having a heart attack right there.
In that moment, he was having a heart attack, okay? Now, he got out of the sport, got into martial arts, got healthy and everything, but literally had a heart attack more or less on stage, right? And exclusively mostly due to diuretic use, right?
Now that means some part of his heart at that moment, even though it was pumping, it was malfunctioning.
Precisely.
It wasn't functioning at 100% capacity. It was functioning at 72%.
So
he knew something was off.
Thank God there was someone there that was like, hey, and listen, thank God he was in tune with his body enough to know what was going on.
He didn't feel right.
He's not a pussy. He wouldn't have tried to, if he didn't try to tough it out, that means that he knew something was wrong.
Yep.
And that's at least the advantage
Seriously
of training.
wrong.
Yeah. Like, the difference between like, I'm a little tired, I got to push today versus like, I probably shouldn't train or I should go to the doctor. Like, there's just different levels of in tune with your body that you have to be.
Think about all those people who they die by themselves in their fucking hotel room. They go back to the room.
Dude.
I feel a little off. I'm going to take a nap. Boom.
Yeah.
I probably admit of having that same type of heart attack.
Yeah.
He was like, yo, there's something not right. Because he's probably heard of guys having heart attacks through diuretic use.
A little off topic. This is just on the topic of almost dying in your sleep. Like 15 or 20 years ago, about 15 years ago, at the time I was living in like the basement of my mom's house, right? It's like when I was like 22 or 23. And I woke up one morning and I felt like shit, like splitting headache, okay? Just like a knife in my head, really nauseous, just not feeling well. I went out, kind of ran my errands, and my mom was dropping my sister off at college, at Canisius College up in Buffalo. So I had the whole house to myself. So I had like I was gonna grill some chickens, watch Predator on the big screen. I had a whole fucking night, a night kind of planned out for myself. Went out and I ran hill sprints, and I felt even worse. Because usually if you feel a little off and you train, a lot of times you feel better. I got home, I'm feeling like shit, and I hear a faint beeping coming from the basement. I go downstairs, and it's the carbon monoxide detector. So I didn't know, I honestly didn't know how dangerous this was, right? So I just figured this is annoying, and I go, you know what? It's probably malfunctioning. I'm gonna take a nap. So I go to lay down on the couch.
You're alive.
Yeah, I go to lay down on the couch, and finally I'm like, you know what? Let me call like the fire department switchboard. I didn't even call like 911. I called like the front desk at the fire department, and I was like, my carbon monoxide detector is going off, but I don't really think it's anything. And the woman was like, are you dizzy? I was like, yes. She's like, is your vision blurry? I'm like, I see pretty much 3 of everything. She was like, you have a headache? Yeah, she's like, get out of your house. So I took my 2 dogs out of the house, and EMTs show up and everything. And they're trying to get to me. My dogs are like defending me from these guys that look like they're in a suit of armor. So I put my dogs in my neighbor's yard. They test like my blood levels, and they were like, you were pretty much right at the point where you would have passed out, and then you would have been dead.
Wow,
they went in the basement, they shut whatever, I think it was the boiler, it was leaking from the boiler, shut it down, they rushed me to the hospital, they put me on oxygen for a whole night, okay? When I got home, I don't think I closed the windows for like a year. Because I was so paranoid that and here's the thing, I slept in a level of it that was so low, it didn't set the detector off. And if I had been, maybe I could have died then. It would have like a slow.
You set the level on the sensor.
Yeah. So the level on the sensor
saturated your fucking.
So, so basically, I slept in carbon monoxide the whole night at a level that wasn't enough to set off the detector. So I woke up and I already had carbon monoxide poisoning, right? And if I
how bad did you feel afterwards?
The next day, I think I felt better. I mean, I don't think I went and trained or anything like that, but it was one of the worst headaches I've ever had in my life.
It pretty much cleared from your system relatively quick.
I mean, literally, they strapped me to an oxygen tank.
That's where it stems from, is your boiler.
Yep.
When things go wrong. It's always the boiler.
I was on a stretcher at the hospital, oxygen mask on, like.
Your mom would be like,
my mom would have came home and the dogs would have been dead. I would have been dead.
Yeah, but she was the mom in the hospital, carbon monoxide in the house.
Yeah. Horrible.
We're not staying there tonight.
Yeah, it was brutal. But yeah, guys, I mean, people, it could be even some jacked guy. You go back to your hotel, like you said, think you're going to sleep it off, and you just don't wake up. You don't wake up. And there are risks to some of these things. And it was funny, a guy messaged me yesterday. We put up a video like, what's the safest steroid? And of course, everyone's disagreeing or whatever, but it's good conversation. And some guy messaged me, sent me pictures of his physique. Guy was jacked. Said he took one cycle of test enanthate, probably 400 or 500 milligrams, and there must have been some type of contaminant in it. He's had neurological issues ever since. Hasn't slept well for 2 years. Fucked his whole life up, lost his job.
Really?
Wife left him. I almost it was so bad. If the guy's listening, I don't want to be a jerk. I almost didn't believe it. But the desperation in his tone as he was DMing me, I honestly was kind of heartbroken for the guy.
That's from an underground, obviously, compound.
100%. And that's why they always say, your first cycle could be your last cycle. And for a number of reasons, you could just not want to do it. You could get all the side effects, or you could get something like that. And as much as it's so common to do PEDs now, and we've done them, and it's part of the fitness culture, you do have to understand that there are very real risks to these things.
Freak me out. I don't know if people ever realize this with underground compounds. You find the shit on YouTube watching, and I'm looking at these guys, I'm like, this is how they make it, bro. These motherfuckers, they're wearing, the faces were covered, so you can see them. They threw the shit in a fucking microwave. Who knows there's tomato sauce still on the top? Who knows what in there? Who knows what's in the fucking basement?
Yeah.
Dude, and you're shooting this shit in your body. Listen, Masteron's not a pharmaceutical drug anymore for years, right? Uh-huh. But dude, if this is what it is, the guy's going to take underground compounds. If you find one that works for you, all right, and it's clean and your blood levels are good, stick with it. Yes. Don't go to this one because it's $6 cheaper.
Precisely.
Because that might happen.
Yeah, as my dad used to say, when laser eye surgery first became a thing, he was joking. My dad wanted to get laser eye surgery, and he was like, yeah, there are companies that are offering discounted laser eye surgery. He's like, I think I'll pay full price for that.
Think about that. Yeah. Discounted fucking, amputation.
Yeah. They're going to shoot a laser beam into your eye. I think I'll pay the guy who charges a good, only get one set of eyes.
Yeah, some things you don't fuck around with. You have to put the dollar tag on.
Yeah, and it's a real thing. That's why if you can get it prescribed by a doctor, you obviously should, both for legal reasons and for health reasons, clearly. And you have to find a source that you trust that doesn't have these issues. Like you said, I knew guys that were brewing Tren back in the day. I wouldn't take it because I knew them. I knew they were insane. I knew they were completely insane. Buying the Phenoplex tablets, melting it down with the sesame oil, putting it through. But I'm like, I think you're kind of crazy. Granted, the person I'm getting it from might not be doing it any better than you, but I know you're a nut. I've been in the kitchen you cooked it in, okay? I think I'll pass. Who knows? Most likely it would have been fine.
Breaking down Phenoplex tab. My friend must have fucked that up one time. It turned into brown maple syrup. That was good.
Oh, really?
That was good.
It's like super concentrated? Yeah.
Too concentrated.
Yeah. Just it's like that brown
It's funny
color.
What you said last week. No one's asking what the cow feels like. Tren acetate was never a medication for human beings.
Never once.
Hex is.
Yes.
Hexahydrobenzocarbonate. Due to the fact that it passed trial tests, this is what human beings should take for a very short time of history in medicine.
Yeah.
Tren acetate, I'm sure, was tried on humans. They're like, yo, this shit makes people crazy. Dude, it fucks their heads up.
Think about this, dude. The Tren Hex, the Parabolin that came out of France, which I never took. It was long out of production when I was messing with Tren. Like you said before, it was dosed at 76 milligrams per milliliter.
76.5.
Okay. Now, sorry, Vin. Now think about it this way. That's a long ester. So there's a significant amount of compound that's not tren, it's actual ester weight, okay? Tren acetate is dosed at 100 milligrams per milliliter with minimal ester weight. And
Slam.
And it kicks in like the next day.
Hours,
it hits you like a truck, okay? So, it's just like dropping a bomb on your system. It's such a crazy, crazy thing. And again, the extent to which guys take it nowadays, like I'll talk to guys and I'm like, are you competing? No. What are you doing with this shit?
See this Asian kid, he told his dosages and shit. I'm like, he said he was taking 800 milligrams of tren a week and taking 500. I'm like, one, he definitely doesn't look like it. You probably have really shitty fucking, rice paddy genetics or something. Because 800 milligrams of tren and that's all that you got out of it, your receptors must be like fucking nothing.
Well, also, like, it doesn't really build that much tissue. You know what I mean? If you were trying to maintain some dry look all year long, like certain influencers you and I have discussed behind the scenes, I could see why you would take it if you always have to be in photo shoot shape. Still not a good idea, but I could see why you do it. It's phenomenal at preventing catabolism. I know it actually prevents like cortisol production, so it literally lowers cortisol while you're dieting, which makes it like gold basically for that purpose. But like if you are not big, you shouldn't take it. Like you're better off taking a compound that will actually build more tissue with less side effects.
Educate me now. What compounds lower cortisol?
The only one I could think of offhand was tren. That's the only one I know of. I'm not saying it's the only one, but I think it's something that helps preserve tissue so well. Seemingly, that would be one of the mechanisms by which it would work, right? If your cortisol goes through the roof, it's going to fuck with your fat loss. That affects your blood sugar, obviously. When cortisol goes up, sugar gets dumped in your blood, right? And then now you have potential insulin release. As we know, when insulin is high, you're not burning fat, right? So I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. That's the only drug I've heard of that does that. There's probably others. When I was using it, that certainly wasn't something that I was aware of. It was just like, yeah. And also, if you think about it, if you're dieting for a show, your sleep's probably going to be fucked up, which means your cortisol would be through the roof, which means that the tren might help with that. Although it's kind of a chicken or the egg question. Like, are you unable to sleep because of the calories or because of the tren? Because tren definitely ruins your sleep. There's no doubt about it. But either way, it could offset some of the problems that it causes, right? I mean, like you'll be able to lose fat and perform a little bit better in the gym due to the preventing.
I'm gonna be honest with you. Like when I did tren, I did 200 milligrams a week, right? And that's all I could afford was 200 milligrams. And I said, I'm going to blast it the last 3 weeks before I go away. And I remember I saved to do 600 milligrams a week, right? I didn't do 600 long enough, or do I remember it was so long ago if I had those crazy side effects? The only side effects I really remember was insanity and my hair fell out like a motherfucker. And then after, when we came back, the atrophy to my testicles was beyond.
Yes, so this is the thing. Last week we spoke about safer steroids or whatnot, and it was funny. I referenced that I think that a lot of Nandrolone compounds are not always the best. And someone was like, well, you're wrong because there's Nandrolone in your body. And what I said was, it's not in your body in an appreciable amount that we could anywhere even approach what you'd put in for a cycle. Now, of course, that's true of testosterone. Your body produces top 77 milligrams of testosterone per week. So if you're taking a gram, okay, obviously, that's a lot more. But there is a built-in compensatory mechanism, which is aromatization. Aromatization will protect your organs from the negative effects of androgens. That's why I think testosterone is the safest compound to use by and large.
Balances.
At least your body is balancing something out.
Checks and balances.
Otherwise, you're going to wind up having to do crazy shit like take D-ball to get your estrogen up because you're crushing your E2 levels so much with the heavy
This is
androgens.
why I said in theory what he says a lot about elevating the masteron and keeping your test base. Dude, historically, it's always known that testosterone is always the higher milligram compound as the base, and everything else is the side dishes, your cream spinach and your lobster mac, whatever, smaller portions.
Yeah.
That's in bodybuilding, that's like an even balanced meal, so to speak.
Yes.
I've never, I don't understand. I've never really heard of guys of doing it. The only time I've ever heard of guys doing something even across the board is like Prop, Masteron, Tren, 300 of each.
Yeah, pre-contest too.
Pre-contest.
Yeah, where you're trying to suck as much water out as possible.
That's the only time
because there are guys that will take out injectables before shows. No test. No testosterone
Yeah,
at
they
all.
just go straight.
That has to feel like hell.
Yeah,
That
just
has to feel
straight dry.
hell.
Take Mastron, fucking
it's gotta be,
Halotestin,
yeah,
that shit.
It's got to be
like Andreas
fucking
Munzer
brutal.
cycle.
Yes, well, that was the reason why he's no longer with us. But the thing you referenced about trend too is that the Nandrolone compounds are highly suppressive, and that's the thing you have to take into account if you're saying, oh, what's safe or what's not safe. You have to think about what's easiest to recover from. Like anytime I have taken Tren, it was the same thing. It shut my testicles down like you would not believe.
Me
like
too bad.
I had already been on gear and I thought they were already shut down. And then you take Tren and I think there's like another level to
Now,
it.
do you think that's due to the androgenic component of the drug, or do you think it's a Nandrolone based
I
compound?
think it's Nandrolone because Deca does the same thing.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of people say that Deca does
My only
the same
experience
thing.
with duration of time with Nandrolone. I took Deca one time, and I actually liked it. And my sex drive actually went up from it, and it was real Deca. All right, it's not definitive for everybody. Who knows if that would happen the second time around?
Yeah.
But I was more of an equipoise guy. Test, equipoise, Anadrol.
Yeah.
And the only other time I experienced with the Nandrolone-based drug was Tren. I only did 2 Tren cycles in my life.
Yeah.
I looked so fucking crazy. It looked out of place. I looked like a big artery that was glistening in the sun.
It's almost too much. I mean, we used it a lot back in the powerlifting days because it just got you so fucking strong.
Used it for something different.
And yeah, there were some times where I think I'd referenced this before. We got some advice to take, low dose test, high dose Tren, which there is some logic behind. A lot of these, the Nandrolone based drugs, supposedly they really amplify the negative effects of estrogen, right? So for whatever reason, be through some type of progestogenic conversion or whatnot, you'll get really, really, really bad estrogenic side effects, even if your estrogen doesn't seem to be that low.
Progesterone does the same thing.
Yeah, and so there's a logic, I suppose, to taking lower test as a result because you don't want to have that aromatization. But we were pushing it up to 700 milligrams a week.
It's insane.
And,
For a while, though.
And it was not fun. It was not fun. I think there's also an exact point for a performance-based sport, which powerlifting, I guess, kind of is. There's an argument to be made that because you're a high-level bodybuilder is injecting so many hormones in their body that you almost need less sleep. When you hear these interviews with Ronnie Coleman, Jay Cutler, they always talk about how they were shitty sleepers, which makes sense. You're 300 pounds, you're 5'9".
Can't breathe.
It's crazy. But for a sport like powerlifting, which is so based on, central nervous system drive and everything, I felt like when you took it that much for that long, eventually your sleep would go to complete shit and your performance would just get worse. And
you need to sleep. It's the biggest recovery tool.
Absolutely. Again, if you're taking enough exogenous hormones that sleep won't fuck with lack of sleep won't fuck with your hormone production because you're taking GH, you're taking test. Sure, maybe you need less sleep. It's still not good for you. It's going to be high cortisol levels.
Shit.
Your brain is all fucked up, but certainly I noticed that when my sleep was derailed for a long period of time, it caused some pretty serious problems to my training.
Your body needs to rest.
Well.
You need that sleep rest.
Yes.
6 hours even on hormones, bro. That's what you need because you let your central nervous system, your heart rate has to drop down to a certain level. That restful sleep, even on hormones, the hormones could only replace so much.
Of course.
Be that eraser.
Also, it's a chicken or the egg question, but certainly these are two mechanisms that feed off each other, which is okay, you're taking Tren, which makes you crazy. Then, because of the Tren, you can't sleep, which also makes you crazy.
Let's circle back to what you were saying last week, because I did a one-on-one with him about cardiovascular disease and molecular weight and Nandrolone-based drugs and why they could potentially cause more of a negative effect or side effects cardiovascular disease.
I'm glad you brought this up because when we were discussing quote unquote safer steroids.
So I was right about saying that though.
I agree.
Molecular weight.
Well, there seems to be a decent amount of research on hypertrophy of the left ventricle with Nandrolone users. Now again, we'll kind of look at both sides of this. Are the guys who are being studied just taking Nandrolone? Probably not, right? As far as I know, there's no study that tracks Nandrolone only use for 5 years relative to testosterone only use for 5 years, okay? Are these guys also really big? Probably, okay? Or almost certainly if they're taking high dose drugs, they're bigger than they would be without the drugs. Let's put it that way, okay? Maybe not Mr. Olympia big, but you understand what I'm trying to say. So can we look at this definitively and say that Nandrolone absolutely causes this? Maybe not definitively, but I think that there's been enough anecdotal data out there to show that this might be causing problems. And what'll be interesting is TRT use has become so common. It's almost too common nowadays. You got young guys taking it that are like 20. This is retarded.
I'm on TRT. I'm 20.
No, you're not on TRT. You're on steroids, sir. This is not the same thing.
You don't need TRT at that age.
But like we're now going to get, though, a massive influx of long-term data on testosterone use. So maybe we could turn around and use whatever we were able to pool from just endless amounts of medical records and blood work on guys taking test only for 10, 15, 20, 30 years. If we can say, hey, they have less hypertrophy of the left ventricle taking test only, that might validate some of the studies on Nandrolone. You know what I
reading
mean?
something, or someone was stating, watching Graham, that out of the compounds that HGH users initiate more of upper left ventricular hypertrophy than any other compound. Mm-hmm. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I know that growth hormone initiates something called hyperplasia, doubling of fibers, where something like testosterone theoretically would cause more of a upper left ventricular hypertrophy scenario because of the hypertrophy initiation of protein synthesis. It's a muscle.
Yeah.
Again, you know what? Why I focus so much on cardiovascular disease? Because you don't see it. All right?
Oh, yeah,
like the heart.
Of course.
You just, all of a sudden it's too late. That's when it's too late. You feel it, you know? And cardiomyopathy from over steroid use is real, the thickening of the hearts. To explain to the audience what cardiomyopathy is, when the walls thicken, when you take anabolic steroids, they don't just fucking go to skeletal muscle tissue. Yes. It initiates hypertrophy to all the muscles in the body. So now if you take a super physiological dosage of testosterone, it's going to make your heart grow. Now, the thicker the walls get, the less functioning your heart is, because the heart's supposed to now think about what it's supposed to swim and push. Yeah. And flutter. Exactly. Now the thicker the walls, there's less of an ability, it weakens the heart.
Yes. So that's the knock on testosterone, which is why there have been so many attempts to make other drugs, is testosterone is not what we would call tissue selective, right? If it can cause hypertrophy in any area of the body, right, heart, prostate, and everything, as well as muscles, it effectively means that too much of it for too long could be bad depending on the person and their training and their diet and everything else, which is why they were trying to, they did invent, although I don't think they turned out to be what they hoped, SARMs. SARMs are supposed to be more tissue selective alternatives to testosterone. But what's interesting is that it seems like we've really not seen an actual replacement of testosterone. No one is mass prescribing SARMs as a replacement. And they seem to be running into the same problems as anabolics, right? Like they can be suppressive, obviously, to your endocrine system. They might not aromatase, right? So now all of a sudden, like you're running into some of the same neurological effects that you run into from not having enough estrogen to protect your brain from the androgens, which means, of course, you'd be running into the same problems with your heart. Too many androgens, not enough estrogen to protect it, which, of course, that's when your HDL starts to get fucked up. That's when your blood work turns into a fucking nightmare, and so on. So, I mean, I'm not going to say that. My wife always says this, like, nature's perfect, bro. I'm not going to go that far, although maybe that's the case. If we've invested millions of dollars into trying to find replacements to testosterone, and thus far we have not been able to do it, I mean, we're going to have to maybe settle with a less tissue selective drug, because that's what our body produces anyway, right? I mean, and now if you're going just from an anabolic perspective, like you could say supposedly that yes, like Anavar is more tissue selective, which is probably why it's so popular and so commonly faked, because
there's less of a potential of, DHE side effects
precisely
on your prostate.
Yes, exactly. And so, yeah, but by the same token, it's not a replacement for testosterone.
No.
It will suppress your endocrine system, and you'll start to have all of the symptoms of low T minus the muscle atrophy, because you'll be jacked up on Anavar.
I get a lot of questions now since that Masteron post, like, should I do Masteron test? I'm like, well, Masteron's going to grow some muscle tissue in this. I'm like, nothing replaces testosterone for you. You're going to have a loss of sex drive over time. It's going, even if it's a DHT-based drug, it doesn't replace test, bro. Test is naturally occurring hormone.
You need estrogen, period.
Yeah. If it balances.
Yeah. And even like we said, for gains, like if you're taking a lot of GH, you need the IGF-1 production that comes from high estradiol levels. It's just that simple, right?
Let's go to this, right? AIs, all right? Get tons of questions on them. And the more that I'm around this, and the more research I do, they should not be put into someone's regimen automatically.
It's way overprescribed.
Way overprescribed. And in my opinion, all right, it's not even just my opinion. From what I've seen, is they cause more negative than positive, and they're not. They don't need to be used all the time. What I don't know definitive, but I would bet anything is that. Listen, man, I never needed an AI ever, and I took it for a long time, 1 milligram a week, with other drying compounds, and I can't get my estrogen back. It's barely in the optimal range. This is for the audience. If you're taking it as just why, they're like, oh, they're taking Aromatase, but why? Do you have estrogen problems?
The doses that I hear are also really, really high. You know, like guys taking like a couple milligrams a week or something, which is really crazy.
It's strong, man.
Yeah, it's really, really crazy. I think there are certain instances where it's, I mean, listen, first of all, obviously at the end of the day, no matter what we're saying, it comes down to the individual. If you have, so we've seen guys that take steroids and they get all of the side effects and very little of the positives.
Yeah, it
sucks. It sucks. But you see it, okay? And nowadays on like TikTok and stuff, there's like people that like literally post these things. Like I did gear and this is what I got. And they look worse.
I know.
Like, you know, it's unfortunate. You got a shit draw of the cards. It is what it is. Sorry, bud, but it sucks. But there are guys that will have a very big estrogen spike. And particularly if people taking TRT that are really overweight. Right? I mean, we said a million times.
Weight.
Yeah. Like there's more estrogen receptors in adipose tissue, which means the fatter you are, the more estrogen you will produce, which means you're going to be more likely to have those side effects. So yeah, if you're giving TRT to someone who's morbidly obese, they should probably have the Aromatase on hand. I think the issue then becomes guys do their shot and they just start pinning they start taking the Aromatase right away. The reality is you're not just going to grow tits overnight. There's going to be other symptoms that will occur, and you should probably take it if the symptoms are there, not necessarily as a blanket preventive measure. But the other thing is that we could drastically reduce this. Like honestly, it blows my mind, dude. Like I talk to people and I kind of get frustrated they don't do this. People don't microdose their TRT, right? So you're going to have a much higher risk of side effects if you take a bolus shot of 200 every Monday, as opposed to even breaking it up into 2 or 3 shots. You know, I take my testosterone every day, microdose.
That's how you do it.
And a couple of reasons. First of all, I noticed over the years when I took the bigger shots, I would be a water balloon on one day and not on the other. I would feel a little weirder on one day and not on the other. But also, if you really want to be responsible, you have to get blood work done. Okay, you get your blood work done. If you're not pinning every day, is that blood work even indicative of what's going on in your body on a daily basis? I've spoken to guys that their blood work looks better. And then I ask them, okay, how many days after your shot, they do 1 shot a week, did you take this? I don't know. How many days after the shot, let's say they give me three blood work panels. They can't tell you. Maybe it was the day of. Some of them, the testosterone is fucking sky high, estrogen sky high, super physiological, totally insane. Okay, like that's on you and that's on the clinic. Like when I used to go to get my testosterone, like when I first got my wife pregnant and I went back on TRT, I went to this clinic and I hated it because they made me go there to get the shot. And I'm like, come on, like I've been doing this my whole life. I mean, this is like I could do this on my own. But to be fair to them, they would only take blood 5 days after a shot. That was just their company protocol. Like they would literally like check it. You are not allowed to give any blood until like if you took the shot on Monday, it's going to be Friday or Saturday, whatever.
Well, they know that means by percentage of the half-life that what you must have been at to what the drop-off is.
Okay.
Then they could probably know about.
At least that means they have a standard metric by which to analyze all of the blood panels. Okay. But it's frustrating because someone's SHBG will be all over the place, or their estradiol's all over the place, or their total test is super high. And I'm like, this is not, I don't know what's going on in your body.
So now in theory, for someone like me who has estrogen problems, they're being too low, not too high.
Yeah.
In theory, microdosing wouldn't work for me. The bigger shots would to spike spike estrogen.
Yeah, it's possible.
That's beneficial to someone like me. Because I'll be honest with you, I tried microdosing, right? Mm-hmm. Somewhat microdosing. Mm-hmm. And I felt worse.
Doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
I
was
feel
like,
worse when I don't.
No, my it wasn't as good. I'm
Yeah.
taking the same dose. Then when I do my shots split 2 times a week, I need that extra testosterone to probably bump my estrogen up into that, because I could barely get it in there no matter what I do, bro.
Yeah.
And to be honest, what I think also AIs did, they crushed my HDLs. I'm barely in the optimal range.
Yeah.
But then again, who knows if I was ever 60.
Yeah, it's not like you had blood work done when you were 17 and had never taken drugs. So
I might always been
who
in the
knows?
40s,
Yeah,
50s.
That's a good point. I didn't even think about
Surprising yesterday, I went to the doctor actually to do bloods, and we were just having a conversation. He was telling me, I thought it was common that like people, I thought everyone was in their 50s and 60s. He goes, no, dude, most people like 32, unhealthy.
Yeah.
People 32, barely 40.
Yeah.
He goes, you're like healthy in comparison. I'm like, and these are people on TRT. He goes, no, these are regular people walking around. That's due to lack of exercise,
Of course.
and lack of diet.
Yeah.
Not eating the proper fats.
Yeah, I want to talk about this. I'm really glad you brought this up. I had a very close personal friend of mine message me the other day, and he was like, hey, my doctor said he's my age, he's 38 years old, and he was like, my doctor said my total testosterone's like 250, and I forget what the free was, but it was low, and he was freaking out. And I was like, well, first of all, where's the panel? And he was like, well, they didn't give me the panel yet, so I don't know. And I was like, well, I'll take a look at it when you get the panel. But I told him, first of all, it's just one test. If you had a really rough week, you're stressed out, it's totally possible that you come in, you have a bad test. Just because your levels are low on one day that you get your blood work done does not mean that they are perpetually low. And if you're dealing with the responsible physician, they should make you retest it, maybe every 6 to 8 weeks, to get some type of baseline before they talk about doing any type of medical intervention. But on top of that, how many people are doing the right thing from a health perspective to maximize their endocrine system? Almost no one. They're not eating the right foods. They're not exercising. They're not sleeping. They're drinking alcohol. They're smoking weed. They're doing things that are going to have detrimental effects to their testosterone. And instead, we're just like, well, no, I want to be a Superman. Let me go right on the needle. Look, I'm not saying that it's not a potential outcome for you, and it might be the one over time. But there are also other treatments. I mean, I've seen guys have low T and they take enclomiphene citrate and they feel great. I guess their testosterone back to like 750, 800, which is like a totally normal, healthy level where it should be, and they feel like $1 million, right? So, and that's also not long-term suppressive to your endocrine system. So if you're a guy who's 38, like my friend, and still trying to have kids, TRT is off the table. What are you going to do? Go on for 6 months and then all of a sudden dig yourself out of this fucking brutal ditch just to restart your sperm production? No way,
I get
dude.
this question all the time.
No
Like,
way.
you know the clinic I went to, you don't have to come off test to have kids, and just take HCG. I go, listen, man, it's not definitive you're going to shut off your LH and FSC. It's not definitive. Everybody's different. More than likely, percentage-wise, probably. I'm like, if you're dead fucking serious about having kids, don't do tests.
Yeah.
Just take HCG, bump your shit up, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I go, don't take tests, bro. I go, you'll be okay for a little bit. What's more important? Do you want to have a kid?
Yeah.
Or do you want to be a juice head and thing, whatever? I go, dude, it's simple cut and dry, bro.
Yeah,
That's what it is. Maybe not. Maybe you could take 100 milligrams a week. And some clinics like, no, you could take a little test with them. Like, it's like an override, bro. Like, they're bumping against each other.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Yeah. If the risk is not worth the reward in that case. And that's to the point about Nandrolone as well. It's so heavily suppressive, and something like DECA in particular stays in your system for so long that if kids are even on the horizon, just don't fucking take it, dude.
You know another dumb thing I've seen clinics do? They put in HCG with the testosterone.
That makes no sense.
I was like, there's all different dosages for what your fucking desired result is, for either to keep testosterone stable in your testes, or for you to initiate production, or for fertility.
Yeah.
What's your body fat percentage? This has to be done separate.
Yeah.
You introduce the same amount. Just say you want to keep testosterone stable in your testes, right? The guy has 32% body fat. This guy has 6%. Who's going to produce more estrogen? That's why the dosage has to be titrated accordingly to your body type.
People don't realize this. I mean, I spoke about this maybe last week or a couple weeks ago. HCG can fuck you up in high doses, man. I mean, it can give you some very heavy estrogenic side effects. Like, there's no doubt about it. I mean, it was not fun for me when I was taking that stuff. It was not fun. I had to nuke my body with it, and I felt it all. The water retention, the mood swings, everything. It was still better than taking just Clomid. That shows you how bad clomiphene is. It's the worst.
You want to hear something crazy, bro? I took 2,500 units 3 times a week for months.
That's what I did.
And my estrogen was like normal.
Oh, dude, that's crazy.
Yeah, bro.
That shows you got some
AI
physiological damage. Yeah,
fucked me up.
For sure. I was doing about that 2,500 to 3,000 like 3 times a week, just going through
That's what you have to do for fertility.
The pregnal vials, just you know.
People are like,
so
oh,
cute.
you know, I want to, you know, I'm taking 1,000 units to do. I'm like, dude, listen, man.
That's
honestly,
maintenance at best.
I'm like, a lot of HCG works.
Yeah.
And what it directs, and there's a correlation to testicular size and fertility.
Yes.
There is.
Yeah.
I ask guys, I go, you not shrink? They're like, no, not at all. I'm like, how's the volume size? They're like, good. I'm like, you're probably that individual who didn't shut off. More than likely.
It
Not
happens.
definitive.
Yeah.
I go, how you nuts? They're like, dude, they're fucking getting a little fucking tight. I'm like, yeah. That
take
means
it.
they're going, I'm going.
Yeah, exactly. Major atrophy.
Catch it before it goes. Yeah.
It's true. It's absolutely true. And again, shutting off your production in that regard, man, it's just not fun. I mean, like having to jump on mega doses of that, you don't feel well. And the thing too is like, if your identity is caught up in being a jacked, strong guy, it's even more brutal for you because this thing that you care about is obviously going away while you're doing what you have to do. Now, I wouldn't change a thing. I would love to have a third kid. I wouldn't change a thing.
It's short-lived.
But some
guys
are
can't
crazy.
let it go.
Yeah.
I spoke like, fuck that. I'm like, all right, I guess.
Enjoy the rest of your miserable existence, sir.
It's that important, I guess. No one knows who you are on planet. If you were making $17 million a year, I'd say,
sure.
Okay, maybe I'll buy one from fucking Pakistan or something.
Huh. It is funny though. You ever see these pictures of Triple H when he was trying to have a kid?
No.
So you look it up. There's like it's not definitive, but like you look how old his kids are versus when he looked like shit relative. Obviously, he was juiced the fuck up, trained hard, whatever. That great physique. And the period of time when he was trying to have kids, he was like 20% body fat.
Listen, bro.
Still going out there in the same tights. God bless him. Didn't give a fuck.
I get it, guys. Weightlifting and steroids is like cookies and milk. It's like Coke and cigarettes. It just goes together. We don't have to put the Coke and cigarettes in. But it's like milk and cookies, peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
I get it. Put it aside for a little bit.
Yeah.
You actually, I'll be honest with you, you like it a lot more when it comes back.
I noticed that too. I was so dedicated to training when I was and it's funny because you kind of get the newbie gains again.
Yes,
but it's like
great.
You will not see better progress in your training than when you come back to a TRT cycle after fertility medication. Like you will see your body change daily, like daily. Like you take a before picture. If you're trying to sell your training system, here's what I want you to do. Try to knock your wife up. Once you knock her up, take a picture of yourself in the mirror and then take another picture 8, 12 weeks later. It doesn't even matter what you're doing.
It's funny we bring this up. I never noticed this, right? But I used to cycle. I told you the breaks got shorter and shorter. And then I was on TRT. I fucking smashed my endocrine system. But when I was forced to come off for that duration of time, I didn't change much. I didn't lose that much strength. That's how much HCG I was taking. When I went back on, dude, it was like I never did a steroid ever before, bro.
Of course, dude.
Since my strength was somewhat maintained, dude, the strength went fucking, I was like, fast.
Yeah.
It was fun. I was like, but this is why guys should cycle and maintain.
Yeah, for sure.
Dude, your gains will be so much better. Now, if I did that, if I could turn back time, I would definitely, not listen to fucking the knucklehead up the street who sold me shit for fucking whatever,
obviously.
Right? At 18 years old, cycle on and off because the gains will be so much better.
Yeah.
Your body gets used to everything. Your receptors get cleared up. They're like, oh, I've always heard this too. Yeah, I'm going to switch from enantioate to cypionate to clear receptor. I'm like,
what are you talking
that
about?
doesn't work like that, bro. You know what's clears receptor? Coming off steroids.
I mean, we discussed last week. I thought we had a great conversation about like the history of bodybuilding and the progression of physiques, and I think we've kind of both agreed that today's physiques in the Olympia and the open division are not that much better, if better at all, relative to Ronnie Coleman's era, Jay Cutler, Dennis Wolf, those guys. And again, you take it with a grain of salt, but like Jay Cutler and Ronnie both said after their shows they came off, right? Now they both were well aware. There's long-acting, drugs, compounds in your system, long esters. So they might not have been totally off for 2 or 3 months, but they stopped taking steroids, at least stopped injecting them for sometimes months after a show. And that meant that that's 2 or 3 months a year, maybe more, where they were not having, say, optimal training, and they still look better than almost anyone who's on the stage now. And person listening to this, you're not Mr. Olympia. You have way less at stake in your training, okay? than someone who is going out, has to make money. Their whole brand is based on winning these shows and looking great or whatever. So what does that tell you? Like, it's a marathon. You really need to take your time with this. You can't just expect to be healthy long term. And then the other thing too, I think a lot of people don't think about this. What is the other positive effect that those guys had from coming off? Well, let's think about it. Their strength probably went down. They probably couldn't train as hard, obviously. So what happens? Your joints recover. You don't go back to smashing the 700-pound squat for reps if you're Ronnie Coleman right away, because you can't, okay? Now, I understand you could say your 1 rep max is your 1 rep max, but everyone who's been strong knows that's not true. When I was deadlifting 315 at age 20, okay, I could pull heavy and be fine the next day. At 28, when I was deadlifting 730, I could pull heavy and be in a wheelchair for 2 weeks. Good technique, everything. It's just the neural drive, it's so much more demanding. And that's just how I felt mentally, maybe sometimes my back. That's not even thinking about my hips or really anything else.
Gives your whole body a break, not just your hormone system.
It's brutal. I mean, you only have a finite number of superhuman lifts in you. Even if it's not a PR, does your body really know the difference between 700 and 750 on a deadlift? Probably not. That's just one round out of the chamber. All right, well, how many do we have left?
How many
I don't
more
know.
rounds you have?
I don't know, right? So like, it would probably be beneficial. You come off, you let your body reset, you decrease your training weights, you still keep eating clean, still do your cardio, and then on top of that, like we said before, you will love training so much when you go back on.
You know what I noticed also, what was a key point to focus on? Over the years of using compounds, just maybe my body, because I'm drier, my muscles I was getting hurt a lot easier, right? I popped my quad, I popped my lat, dryness, tight. When I came off shit and then went back on, dude, when I went back on for months, dude, I did not feel that, bro. I was springing weight again, throwing it.
Yeah.
It like reset, even the collagen or whatever it was in my body. But then it started to tighten up again. But I was forced to stay on TRT just because my body wouldn't produce testosterone. It was
of
like,
course. Yeah.
You know?
If that's the case, maybe even go down to 100 milligrams. You know what I mean? Like, just give everything a break, because it's not just like the maintenance of muscle tissue. It's keeping your body in the game for as long as possible. If you're just crushing heavy weight, like, for example, we've spoken a lot about DC training and its effectiveness. Even Dante Trudell says like 8 weeks heavy, 2 to 4 weeks light.
You need to give the joints and body a break.
And your nervous system, like, if you're starting to dread going to the gym and you're someone who loves training, what does that tell you?
Don't go.
Yeah. Or do something easy. Okay? Do something easy. Rebuild that drive to go in there and crush heavy weights, because if you're taking gear, you're probably not someone who hates the train, right? If you start to hate training, we're having an issue. We're going towards burnout. And we have to really start to reassess the way we look at it. And maybe it's almost like putting a governor on the engine, Vin? Like, if you're a psycho and you always lift super heavy, okay? If you lower the dose of the drugs or you come off, that means you can't do that. Even if you wanted to, you couldn't do it, okay? So I agree. I think if I could go back in time, I would probably come off and maybe compete a little bit less like, I was doing too many meets a year. So it was always like a 12-week meet training cycle, come off, maybe 4 weeks of light work, another 12 weeks. So we're always pushing. Yeah, always pushing and pushing and pushing. And the reality is too, like, the better you want to get at anything, the bigger your base building process has to be. If you're doing a bodybuilding show every 3 months, you're not getting bigger.
No, you got to spend that time to get bigger.
If you're doing a powerlifting meet every 12 weeks, your technique might get better. You might figure the programming out. Maybe you'll peak better for the meet, but a bigger muscle is a stronger muscle.
Can't work on that strong.
Yeah. And no one in powerlifting goes down in weight over the course of a career. You're lifting weights. That's the sport. Even if you're trying not to, you're going to gain size. So you might as well try to grow into that next weight class as best as possible. And that's something I think that I wish I would have done differently. I think I would have been less burnt out by the sport. I was starting to get some injuries. I probably would have had less injuries. Yeah. I just would have enjoyed it more.
You know what I saw someone post the other day? I didn't even know people still used it. Was, it's all over the gram. Everyone post the cycle. Dinitrophenol. I was like, people still use that shit?
Yeah.
Tell them what that does.
It literally increases your core temperature so high that you melt.
What is it derived? What is it derived from?
It's either, all right, so it's either an ingredient from dynamite or the ingredient
Packing.
used to pack dynamite?
It's the packing.
Yeah. Okay.
So the history of it is this: in the it was 1849, the miners out west, they started fucking losing all this weight when they were fucking putting dynamite in the earth. They didn't know what it was. It was the packing. It was the chemical, right? And they would die. You die from it because it causes cellular fucking damage or cellular die-off.
You're giving yourself a fever.
Yes.
A massive fever. Yeah.
But what it is, why it's popular in bodybuilding is because it's protein sparing. It burns
So
body
crazy.
fat and carbohydrates
So
off.
crazy.
Yo, I never did it, right? But I know these crazy motherfuckers would do it, and you'd sweat yellow at night.
Yep.
They'd put bed sheets out.
Everything's yellow.
Why? I'm like, bro, where you going?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, the thing with DMP, like, that scares me the most. Like, for example, there's not really, people aren't taking like underground insulin, right? Like, you get insulin and it's like, you're going to get Humalog or whatever. It's going to be dosed at what it says it is. And even if it's a little too much, you could probably eat a little more, right? There's, like, if you get DMP, it's not being made by a pharmacy. It's made by someone who's probably more retarded than me and you are, which is really saying something because we have no business handling dinatural phenol. And then you take one of these pills and it's a little overdosed, you will die. Like, it's not even a question. Like, you will die. And I've heard people losing as much as a pound of fat a day on DMP, but you feel like AIDS.
Dude, it's
like you
fucking
are,
chemical.
Unbelievable.
It's not any type of hormone at all. It's a chemical you put in your body. It's like drinking fucking cyanide, but just the right amount to burn off body fat.
Yeah.
Kind of, something like that.
And if you overdose it, there's no, like, again, you take a little too much testosterone, okay, you're going to be a little bit bloated or whatever. You're a little moody, but whatever, you just lower the dose.
You know what
it's
else
really
I
not
wanted
a
to
huge
touch
deal.
base is about underground compounds, right? Now, I'm always hearing I'm taking a liquid clenbuterol, I'm taking liquid this or whatever, right? You have to understand this. These underground laboratories are not measuring this with laboratory tools, okay?
Yeah.
And now a microgram.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
Microgram, this is what happened to me. A milligram is a much larger size. A microgram is 1,000th of a pinhead. Think about that, 1,000th of a pinhead. How is some knucklehead in his basement going to measure this, okay? So years ago, I took an underground T3, okay? Supposed to be dosed at 25 micrograms per quarter milliliter. Took a quarter, bro. I was like this in the gym. I was like, I don't feel good, bro. I was taking it. And then I started reading the side effects. It was, dude, who knows how much. I couldn't even keep weight on.
Yeah.
I was sweating.
Yeah.
Be careful of microdosed underground compounds when it comes to something like T3, clenbuterol. Milligram is a much easier way for these guys to measure.
Very common. I went down a rabbit hole the other night reading about, frankly, gurus that might kill their clients. And it's actually very common with women because they'll jack them up on so much T3 or clen, right? Because a lot of women are not going to massively dose anabolics per se. They still have to look feminine usually for their division, and so it's much bigger on stimulants, diuretics, and aromatase inhibitors. Dude, if you're a woman and you're crushing Aromatase, you're gonna have some pretty serious problems. I mean, not good. And you're just going to screw with your menstrual cycle. It's going to fuck with your fertility. Obviously, your joints are going to be totally screwed up. But I was hearing these numbers of like certain guys telling people to take like, I don't know, man. It might have been like 60 micrograms of clen, like 6 weeks out of a show. Like, where are you going to go? Where do you go from there? Like, if you get stuck and you have to increase the dose, you're just going to kill them. Like, there's no, like, oh, we're started 20 and
I was never a clen fan.
I don't like
never.
it.
You know what I did like? To be honest, it's old school. It's Dan Duchaine era. Ephedrine, caffeine, aspirin.
Way better.
That's my favorite.
Way
better.
I took both clen and albuterol. So albuterol is similar to clen, but has a shorter half-life. When I used to work at Roosevelt Field Mall, I would work these during the holidays, 12, 14-hour shifts. The mall's open all day, right? And everyone that was there was a bodybuilder. I was the only powerlifter. They were competed. Some of them went on to actually have good careers, and so everyone had shit all day. It was just a smorgasbord of just fucking crazy. People had just their shit in their bags. Everyone's like, yo, why don't you try this? Why don't you try that? And I was never someone who was trying to lose weight. I was always trying to gain weight. One of the guys was on a diet. he slipped me some Clen, and I have a really high tolerance generally for stimulants, although I know that Clen works through a different pathway. I felt awful.
Yeah,
and because the half-life is so long, you're just stuck. You just feel like shit all day. Then one of my boys got albuterol, which is similar to Clem, but a shorter half-life.
Inhaler.
Yeah. So like it was easier to, if you could take that and then at least know in about 3 or 4 hours, you're going to feel better. I hated Clen, dude. And the thing with the ECA stacks was, first of all, it worked. No question about it.
Crashes were vicious.
Yeah, but it crushed your appetite. Crushed your appetite.
Yeah, but
dude.
again, I'm dieting, trying to shred.
Yeah.
It was okay.
Yeah, exactly. I had a friend who competed in strongman, and this is before, like pre-social media really, so this is back when everyone was on message boards, and he used to tell me all these stories about like how retarded the scene would get. And he said he flew to some show somewhere, and he was trying to get down to like 175, and he's like just crushing stimulants to get down. Like he took ECA every day for like 10 or 12 weeks. Okay, just total abuse. He was like in his early 20s.
Yeah, I remember I would cycle on, cycle off. I think I'd do a few days on. I can't, what I do in between though, but it wouldn't be as effective.
Yeah. And he said he was just amping the dose up. Again, early 20s, total idiot. So he said he does the show. I don't even remember how he did. But he said he gets on the plane to go home and he passes out. And while he was passed out, I guess he had like insane withdrawal symptoms of it. And he wakes up, the flight attendant is like pulling on him. And she's like, "Are you okay, sir? Are you okay?" He had completely sweat through all of his clothes.
Oh, man.
Just on a plane, just,
Scary.
Yeah, like drenched, like jeans are drenched, everything is drenched.
Pouring.
Yeah, just pouring sweat. And he was like, "I'm not okay, but there's nothing we can really do about it. Like, I just got to get home.
I'm on a plane.
Like, exactly.
What are we going to do?"
Yeah, just get me water and keep the bathroom clear if I have to puke or something. But like, remember he said after that, he was like, "Never again."
Yeah, it's not worth it.
Never again. But
Got to wrap it up. But what I was going to say, that's what it was. It was dimetrogen 25, a real Excedrin, and a real Vivarin 3 times a day. That's what I would do. Not the generic. I was like, that's what worked though, bro. That's burns body fat like a motherfucker.
dude, you're like the Dave Mustaine of like the fitness industry. Like they always say, I like uppers, but you make me feel like a bitch. You're on another level. Like you definitely have some enzyme or surplus in enzymes that just break down stimulants. You could just handle that shit like a horse, dude. And you still sleep? Like you're not all fucked up, but you just take it and like
my body filters them beyond fast. Beyond.
Yeah.
In and out. And dude, even when I would drink, the craziest thing, if I stop drinking, if I don't get wrecked, if I stop drinking a little bit, I'm sober in like 2 hours. Like it's out of me.
Yeah.
Flushes right out.
The best liver and kidneys in the world right there.
Whatever it is. Who knows what's like now. But all right, got to wrap it up. Got my brother coming.